The Canadian Mining Hall of Fame would like to thank our legacy sponsor, Hecla Mining Company. Hecla is a precious metals mining company with operations in Canada and the United States. Hecla is the largest silver producer in the U.S. and has been delivering long-term value for shareholders and building a net positive legacy for all.
Hecla's culture is pretty unique, in part because of the 130 plus years that we've been in existence. As a result of that, we have a long-term perspective, a long-term view. We're never really thinking about just the coming year. We're really thinking about the coming decade, 2 decades, 3 decades. People want to work here and they want to see the company succeed. It's a culture of caring, it's a culture of people expecting a lot of one another, and it's a culture of, really looking to the future.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Okay, everyone, we'll get everyone to take their seats and we'll get this underway. We have lots of celebrating to do here tonight, and we want to jump right on into it. My name's Anthony Vaccaro. I'm going to be your master of ceremonies for the evening. I'm the president of the Northern Miner Group and a proud director of the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame. I'm honored to welcome you to our 36th annual Canadian Mining Hall of Fame dinner and induction ceremony. We're excited to share with you the achievements of this year's 5 new inductees. Absolutely. There's going to be lots of that tonight. William Roscoe and John Postle. David Ross Bell. Ross Lawrence. And Eric Sprott. We're going to get the chance to learn more about all of their pretty amazing careers over the course of this evening, so sit tight. You're all going to enjoy yourselves, I am sure of it. I'd also like to recognize the land that we are gathered on here tonight. The Metro Toronto Convention Centre is built on land that is and has been under the stewardship of many Indigenous peoples, including the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat, and the Mississaugas of the Credit River. Canadian Mining is proportionately the largest private sector employer of Indigenous peoples nationwide and has engaged in over 500 agreements with Indigenous communities. These agreements help us to chart a path forward towards economic reconciliation. It's my great pleasure to introduce our sustaining sponsor this evening. We are very grateful for all their support. It enables us to tell these stories, to keep these stories alive, and to honor the very best of our industry. When I call your name, please do stand, and we can acknowledge your great contributions. Our legacy sponsor, Hecla Mining. We're joined by Phil Baker, President and CEO. Our visionary sponsors, representing Agnico Eagle, we have Mr. Jamie Porter, who is Executive Vice President and CFO. Right over there. Representing Franco, Nevada, is Paul Brink, President and CEO. Paul. And from Hatch, we're joined by Tina Armstrong, Global Managing Director for Metals. Tina? Representing our champion sponsor from Teck, we're joined by their chair, Sheila Murray, also at this table at the front. It's because of all of you that the legacy of the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame continues. We thank you.
Thank you to our visionary sponsor, Agnico Eagle. Agnico Eagle is a senior Canadian-based and led gold mining company and third largest gold producer in the world. Recognized globally for its leading environmental, social, and governance practices, Agnico Eagle is a partner of choice within the mining industry. Thank you to Agnico Eagle for hosting tonight's VIP reception.
We are Agnico Eagle. We've been making mining work for over 60 years. How? By treating people and communities with respect, improving safety and environmental performance through innovation, by never settling on the status quo. It's about forging partnerships that make us stronger so that we can seize opportunities tomorrow. At Agnico Eagle, that's how we make mining work.
Ladies and gentlemen, your Master of Ceremonies, Anthony Vaccaro.
Oh, thank you. That's not necessary. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hi again, everybody. It's fun being up here. I get this great view. Everyone is looking pretty good tonight. I see a lot of dapper folks out there. And I also see a lot of really good people. You know, I first got my taste of this industry 18 years ago. Back then I was a market reporter for Dow Jones Newswire. And I quickly found myself only wanting to cover the mining sector. And the reason for that was as simple as it was clear to me. It was the people. I was basically interviewing CEOs for a living, and the mining leaders stood out from all the other leaders of the other sectors by so much. They were so much more colorful, so much more direct. The amount of times I had to say, you know this is on record, right? And then I would always, well, most of the times I get, yeah, I know, it's okay, it's good. I thought, only in mining. I mean, I was hooked. So now to be here tonight, I'm emceeing this gala for the 5th time, a gala that celebrates the very best people in the industry. And it's not only an honor for me, it's also a lot of fun. I love being here amongst you all. And it's a new year. Good. Let's put that old one behind us. It started with a little bit of optimism. Yes, put it behind us. I agree. It did start with some optimism, if you'll remember, right? COVID was over, or at least I think we were all over with COVID. Governments, right? Geopolitics, this is the thing now. Governments seem to be finally getting it. At the beginning of that last year, there's that optimism. They're saying the right things about needing the mining sector, needing to support the mining sector. And this is more crucial than ever. Because I think geopolitics and the mining sector have perhaps never been as intertwined as they are right now. And when you add to that fact that 1/3 of the world's population, over 3 billion people, are going to the ballot box next year, staying on top of which regimes are going to be friendly to mining and which ones aren't is absolutely critical. Now, last year we had a lot of movement on this, right? We had countries that we maybe thought were friendly, became a little bit less so. We had others that were questionable. They started to seem a little bit more friendly. You'd be forgiven if you had a hard time keeping track of it all. So here's a little recap, all right? All right, let's start to the south. Our friends down in Mexico, not so friendly anymore. Andrés Manuel López Obrador has not granted a new mining permit since 2018, and last year said that he wanted to nationalize lithium projects. On the plus side, his triceps are looking pretty good. Chile, for so long the beacon of democratic capitalism in South America, not so friendly anymore. Shortly after Obrador made his announcements on wanting to nationalize lithium projects, President Gabriel Boric, well, he unfortunately kind of said the same thing. And then Panama. We all know what happened there, right? Leonardo DiCaprio got a hold of President Laurentian Cortizo's cell phone number. That's what happened there. Leo flipped the one-time friendly to mining president. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. But it wasn't all bad news. The sector gained a new friend in MBS. Yes, Saudi Arabia is becoming a significant player in the sector. It's being supportive on many fronts. So we'll chalk up MBS on the side of friendly to mining. Still questionable for journalists, but friendly to mining. Now, unfortunately, we did have to say goodbye last year to a prime minister that was quietly mining friendly while in office. Finland's Sanna Marin. Did you know that while in office, Finland was the European country with the most mines, the only European country to produce phosphate and cobalt, and Europe's largest gold producer? And if those numbers don't impress you enough, then this pick should really seal it for you. And that's because there can be no doubt about where a leader of a nation stands on mining when they rock the heavy metal threads. There's never been, I stand by this, there's never been a heavy metal fan that isn't mining friendly, never. All right, and I know there's a disproportionate amount of closet heavy metal fans in this audience here tonight. You know who you are. All right, and what about here, closer to home, Canada and the States? Well, even the Democrats, yes, even the Democrats are now returning phone calls from miners. The Biden administration's not only saying the right things, but doing them. IRA funding of over $300 billion, a lot of that will flow into parts of our sector. And in Canada, the Critical Minerals Fund is providing needed capital. So governments here are starting to get it, finally. Now we just need to ensure that we continue to attract the best and the brightest into politics, and we can keep things moving in the right direction. But listen, if things do go pear-shaped here at home, pardon me, and you never know, I mean, what if the NDP gets in? So if things do go wonky, we're just going to have to start looking further afield, like way further afield, like the moon. But not to worry, it's not as far-fetched anymore as it once was. NASA's been working on this. They made breakthroughs last year on how to mine without water, and that's one of the chief challenges to mining up there. And they're set to learn a lot more as they're going back to the moon for the first time in over 50 years as the Artemis mission. Now, there is one good thing about waiting over a half of a century to go back to the moon. Things have changed a bit. This time around, we'll actually get a woman to the moon for the first time. Of course, women have been to space, but not to the moon. This will be the first time, which should actually increase the mission's chance of actually finding the moon. Yes, and it also gives NASA a chance to once and for all clean up that frat boy image that still hangs over the whole astronaut thing. But listen, despite NASA getting on board and our governments getting on board, we all know, we alluded to it at the top, it was a challenging year last year. I don't need to tell anyone here that, right? Lithium prices, nickel prices were down. Outside of those smug buggers in the uranium sector, the markets did not give us much love. It's clear that we still have some work to do when it comes to winning over the generalist investor. And in fact, we need to win over a lot more than just investors, because let's face it, most of the general public, both human and other, still have no idea what we're up to. I love this one, I'm sorry. I always get a Northern Miner Archive one up here. This is a John Kilbourne one that always gets me. But what are we going to do on this front, right? This is a big issue. This is serious. What are we going to do? Now, some of you will remember Hall of Famer Robert Friedland. He had an idea when he was inducted in 2016. As part of that speech, he said he would make a movie. It'd be the first time that miners were portrayed in a positive light. He said it, but first he had to go make a big sack of dough producing Crazy Rich Asians. We can't fault him for that. But outside of that need to scratch that crazy rich itch first, the miner movie was also apparently stalled by some serious casting issues. Right? They had a very hard time finding the right actors to match to some of the Hall of Famer big leaders of our industry. I have good news on this front for you all here tonight. With the help of AI, because of course none of you should even leave your house without consulting your AI little bot first, the help of AI can confidently tell you that we've landed on the perfect cast. The first one was easy. AI didn't even break a sweat. Pierre Lassonde will be played by his Hollywood doppelganger, Eric Bana. Rob McEwen. Rob, where are you? You're over there. Well, Rob, I have good news. You're going to be handled by the supremely talented Tom Hardy. Wait for it, and there we go. Now you see it. Vancouver's finest, Mr. Ross Beatty, you ask. Well, coming off a defining performance as Leonard Bernstein, we've got Bradley Cooper to switch gears on this one, and he's going to be doing Ross Beatty for us. And finally, starring as the indomitable Pat Dillon, no one less than Oscar Award winner Michelle Williams to do the job. Wait for it, we got, there we go. All right. Pretty good, I'd say. Pretty good. All right. So there you have it. Apologies to Idris Elba, who I understand was lobbying for a role and even starred in a documentary called Gold. That's part of his pitch to be cast, perhaps the sequel, Idris. But listen, now for our newest members to the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame, the people that we've all come here to celebrate tonight. Bill Roscoe and John Postle, the geologist and the engineer. Combined, they have spent over 8 decades in consulting and mining. 8 decades combined. That is the same, let's sort of put that in context, that's the same span of time from when John Lennon and Paul McCartney were in diapers all the way through until when Peter Jackson recolorized them in Get Back. But unlike John and Paul, John and Bill continue to talk to each other the whole way through, which is astoundingly impressive. David Bell. You know, they say a dog's sense of smell. David Bell, yes, please. They say a dog's sense of smell is 10,000 times stronger than a human's. 10,000 times stronger, that's significant. But that's only if the dog is sitting next to a human other than David Bell and sniffing for something other than gold. The man with a nose for gold sniffed out the grand poobah of gold mines at Hemlo. And for that, he has one of the greatest mines in the history of Canada named after him. Ross Lawrence. A Northern Miner article in 2012 referred to WGM as the James Bond of the consulting world for its ability to get out of some dicey situations, bush planes sinking, locals wielding AK-47s, being caught up in the midst of a revolution. Ross, I think you had enough of all that. That's why you became such an expert on the Arctic and the far north. And while Ross is still left out of the company name, he is no longer left out of the hall as he joins his partners Murray Watts, Tom Griffiths, and Jack McHewett in the hall. Eric Sprott. You know, Eric is not only one of our industry's foremost investors, he's also living proof that you don't have to be a consultant to get into the Mining Hall of Fame this year. You just have to have single-handedly pretty much finance the junior sector. Yes, a Sprott check is still the blue check mark of authenticity for junior miners. Eric, if only you negotiated a Spotify-type royalty agreement for every time the Sprott name is used in a junior investment deck, who knows, you might even be rich by now. Listen, we'll learn more about the incredible careers of our newest members when we watch the fantastic tribute videos. I'd now like to invite Janice Zinck to the podium. Janice is the chair of the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame. She's also the executive director of geoscience and mines within the Department of Natural Resources and Renewables in Nova Scotia. But first, a quick word from our sponsors.
Thank you to our visionary sponsor, Franco Nevada. Franco Nevada Corporation is the leading gold-focused royalty and streaming company with the largest and most diversified portfolio of cash flow-producing assets. Its business model provides investors with gold price and exploration optionality while limiting exposure to cost inflation. Thank you to Franco Nevada for hosting tonight's after-dinner networking reception.
Franco Nevada is delighted to sponsor the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame. Good evening, everyone. Bonsoir à tous. It's a pleasure to be with you all once again this year as we induct and celebrate 5 new members into the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame. Over the past 35 years, we have honored 203 leaders who have made significant contributions to Canadian mining, both here at home and abroad. We are fortunate to have so many of these leaders here with us this evening. So please join me in welcoming Ross Beatty, who is also a supporting partner of the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame. Thank you, Ross. Peter Bradshaw. Alex Davison. Pat Dillon. David Elliott. David recently made a very generous donation of $15,000 to the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame. For this, we thank you incredibly so much. Thank you, David. Maureen Jensen. Sandy Laird. Philip Mackey. Terry McGibbon. Rob McEwen. Robert Quartermain. Eve Shirkus. Doug Silver. Ian Telfer. And Ed Thompson. We'd also like to acknowledge the presence of Francesco Sobera. He's a member of the Canadian House of Commons, and he joins us tonight. Welcome very much, and appreciate you having you join us tonight. I'd like to take a moment now to honor Canadian Mining Hall of Fame member George Cross. George passed away this past November the 18th, at the age of 91. George covered Canada's junior mining sector for 5 decades through the George Cross newsletter and was inducted into the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame in 2007. Henry Lazenby, reporter for the Northern Miner, says George will be remembered for a lifetime spent chronicling the Canadian mining heartbeat. Sadly, we have lost a dear friend and Mining Hall of Fame director, Chris Twigg-Mulsey, earlier this week. Chris served as director of the Hall of Fame since 2012. For 49 years, he worked for Hatch, including starting the Hatch offices in Russia, Chile, Peru, and growing operations in China. He was responsible for development, global marketing, and sales of Hatch Technologies. Please join me for a moment of silence to remember Chris. And now, please join me in recognizing William Roscoe and John Postle, David Ross Bell, Ross Lawrence, and Eric Sprott. These 5 individuals stand out as visionaries within different areas within our industry. They were bound by a common approach, identifying opportunities and translating them into reality. Their tireless commitment to unlocking discoveries, building projects, and generating wealth for the benefit of Canada and beyond makes them truly worthy of this recognition. Our deep gratitude goes out to each and every one of you for joining us this evening to celebrate these remarkable careers, and to our sponsors for their invaluable support in capturing, preserving, and sharing their inspiring stories. Thank you for being here tonight, and enjoy the ceremony.
Thank you to our visionary sponsor, Hatch. Hatch partners with their clients to tackle their toughest challenges in the metals, energy, and infrastructure sectors. Celebrating 7 decades of exceptional customer service, thank you to Hatch for tonight's dinner wine.
And now, for what we've all been waiting for. Let's get the show started and induct 5 incredible leaders into the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame. Kicking things off is our dynamic duo of William Roscoe, but we all know him as Bill, and John Postle. I'm going to direct your attentions to the screens to learn more about their inspiring careers.
Bill Roscoe and John Postle have collectively dedicated over 8 decades to the mining industry, where their integrity and professionalism were the touchstone of their careers. They both helped forge new standards for reporting and valuation of resources while operating a world-renowned consulting company.
RPA became the go-to engineering firm because of their high standards. They continued to raise these standards whenever they saw the opportunity.
Bill is very upright. He wants to do the right thing. And I suspect that infiltrated the culture of the company, doing it right and doing it proper.
They both really developed, I would say, a firm of specialists, mining engineers and geologists that have an international reputation for the preparation and auditing of mineral resources and mineral reserves.
Bill and John both come from mining backgrounds, with either parents or grandparents in the industry. Bill was born in Hancock, Michigan, and John in Kirkland Lake, Ontario. They first crossed paths working in New Brunswick.
Yeah, Bill and I met at the Wedge Mine in New Brunswick, and shared an interest in geology and interested in rocks, and an interest in mineral economics. And we got to become very good friends.
Their paths diverged, but they reconnected in the 1980s, both working at David S. Robertson and Associates. During lunches, they would dream about starting their own company. It became a reality in 1985.
We really had no vision. I mean, we just said we hope we can make a living. The roles were wherever the need was, I guess.
Bill took on business development, while John flourished in a more administrative role.
Bill has a very, very articulate background. His writing skills are just unbelievable. And as a result, we sort of ended up, Bill did most of the writing and I did most of the reading afterwards.
He was better at the day-to-day administration, getting our invoices out and that, important things like that.
As the company grew, their philosophy was to hire the best.
We tended to hire people who had experience, people who've been out in the working world for 10 or 20 or 30 years.
Typically, if RPA was in a report, there was a lot of credibility given to that report. And in fact, when I looked at a project, or my colleagues were looking at a project, and we saw RPA, we felt very comfortable in terms of the due diligence, etc.
It was a company built on strong values, where employees felt they were part of a family that stuck together during tough times.
Our industry is very, very cyclical, and John and Bill never let employees go. They always would not take either a salary themselves at that time, and in the long term, they were able to keep a lot of really good people.
At its peak, RPA had about 60 employees managing projects from multiple offices. They became known as the gold standard for technical reporting. Bill credits John for developing independent engineering business with chartered banks that were financing projects.
We would be retained to follow up and do maybe quarterly site visits and write little reports, make sure they're on time and on budget and that type of thing, or if there are any issues.
Bill and John's volunteer contributions also had a significant and enduring impact. Both led committees for CIM, developing standards for the industry.
Bill and John have spent their life leading the development of mining technical standards in Canada. As a result, Canada is not only recognized as a mining leader, but also as a leader in the development of global standards.
If it wasn't for John, the CIM would not have taken active role as it is now in all of these standards. So John played a very important role.
In late 2000, the standards were adopted, and National Instrument 43101 became the reporting standard for the industry. Bill's contribution was in standards for valuation.
I worked with Bill as co-chair and co-founder of the Canadian Mining Valuation Standards. And these standards are now globally recognized.
That led to Bill's support developing international standards, working on a committee to which he still contributes. Bill and John have been awarded many accolades for their contribution to the industry, both receiving fellowships, Distinguished Lecturer, and Robert Elver Awards from CIM.
Well, I have to say one thing, okay? If you want to get yourself a good partner, look for Bill Roscoe.
I can say the same thing, I think, John. I think we had a good partnership, and I think it's
Yep.
kind of worked out from starting out with the two of us in a borrowed office and space, and the way things progressed from there, I think was kind of beyond our wildest expectations.
I think so.
As they grew their company, careers, and families, their friendship flourished, bonding over hobbies like sailing, at which Bill is an accomplished racer. In 2019, SLR, an international consulting company, acquired RPA, but Bill and John's values live on in the company. Their expertise and dedication redefine mining consulting and standards development, shaping the industry for generations to come.
Now, John Postle unfortunately cannot be with us this evening, but accepting the award on his behalf and joining Bill on stage will be his daughters, Tricia and Kristen. So Bill, Tricia, and Kristen, please come up to the stage to accept the award.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Bonsoir, mesdames et messieurs. And greetings to all the children here, I think many of whom are my grandchildren.
We're sorry that our father John is not able to be here tonight to accept in person. He would have been able to make a joke to start out the evening, probably something fairly direct and colorful. He's not been well for the past several months and recently moved into a retirement home. We're optimistic he was able to be here tonight, but he's been very weak. He sends his gratitude and good wishes to you all.
I'd like to thank the Mining Hall of Fame for the nomination, and I'd really, really, really appreciate the honor. And I think Bill does as well. So I'm very honored. It's something that first I never, ever, ever expected this. Never expected this.
So on behalf of our father and Bill, we'd like to thank the Prospectors and Developers Association of Canada for forwarding their nomination and the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame for accepting it. Sincere thanks to nominators Keith Spence, along with Bill Schaefer and Ed Thompson, and all those who were kind enough to write support letters. Our father and Bill both come from mining backgrounds. John's father, Larry Postle, was a US-educated mining engineer who emigrated to Canada in 1929 and worked at the mines near Kirkland Lake, Ontario, Val d'Or, Quebec, and Princeton, BC. He ended up as president of Granby Mines and undoubtedly influenced John to study mining engineering.
And my grandfather, H.L. Roscoe, was also a U.S.-educated mining engineer, immigrated to Canada around 1920 to work at a nickel mine near Sudbury. In 1926, he took a job with a junior company in northwestern Quebec, which was developing or constructing a mine, mill, and smelter. This was the beginning of Noranda Mines, where he spent the rest of his career and was inducted into the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame for his role in building the company. My father, Harry Roscoe, is also a mining engineer who spent much of his career managing a talc mine in southern Ontario. He jokingly suggested that I not go into the mining business, but children have been known to do the opposite of what their parents advise at times. When John and I were considering striking out on our own, we talked to the legendary Bill James Sr. of James Buffum and Cooper, who was 90 at the time. He's, of course, in the Mining Hall of Fame, too. We asked his advice about starting up a new consulting firm. He told us, you can have your office anywhere you want as long as it's at the corner of King and Bay, which, as you know, is the heart of the Toronto Financial District. We like to think he was worried about the competition of a new consulting firm. RPA grew and succeeded, as you heard in the video, beyond our wildest dreams, in many ways thanks to our employees and associates. We always strove to hire people with appropriate technical expertise and experience so they could function with a minimum of oversight. We endeavor to treat our employees, subcontractors, and clients with respect and honesty. We think that a lot of RPA's reputation rests on high-quality technical work, clearly written reports, and the ability to communicate our conclusions and opinions in an unbiased manner, whether good or bad. And that tradition continues today with SLR Consulting, which acquired RPA in 2019. I'll mention a few of our memorable consulting projects. RPA carried out, in about 1989, RPA carried out mineral resource estimates for a new high-grade gold-silver discovery at Eskay Creek in northwestern BC. Our estimate, based on the first 200 drill holes, was very close to the final feasibility resource estimate, based on about 2,000 drill holes and underground exploration. RPA was the independent engineer for a consortium of banks for the expansion of Agnico Eagle's La Ronde gold, silver, zinc, copper mine in northwestern Quebec. This involved sinking of the 2.2 kilometer deep Penna shaft, the deepest single lift shaft in the Western Hemisphere. About 20 years ago, John and I carried out a due diligence site visit to the past-producing Let Sing diamond mine in Lesotho, a small landlocked country within the Republic of South Africa. While we were at the camp, the staff received word that the chairman of the company that held the project had been murdered in Johannesburg. Kind of shocking news. And about 20 years ago again, RPA and Hatch acted as independent engineer for a consortium of banks for a loan to finance Aber Resources' 40% interest in the Diavik diamond mine in the Northwest Territories, located 300 kilometers northeast of Yellowknife. This was a unique project in many ways, including construction of a 3-kilometer water retention dike for the initial open pit, which is located within a large lake. In closing, John and I would like to acknowledge the support of our many colleagues and clients and friends who made possible the reputation and success enjoyed by RPA. And thanks to our families for their support over the years, particularly my wife, Janet. Once again, thank you for bestowing this great honor on us. We are truly grateful for being inducted into the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame.
Thank you, Tricia and Kristen, and congratulations, Bill and John.
Thank you to our champion sponsor, Teck. Teck is one of Canada's leading mining companies, focused on providing products that are essential to building a better quality of life for people around the globe.
Our next inductee this evening is David Roscoe. Please enjoy this tribute video to learn more about David's groundbreaking career.
Exploration in the Hemlo area began in the 1800s, but with little success over the years. It wasn't until 1981, when geologist David Bell started his drilling program for Corona Resources, that a major discovery was made. A discovery that started the biggest staking rush in Canada since the Klondike Gold Rush.
David was the right man at the right time in an area of Ontario that had seen many picks broken on and off for over a century. His dogged persistence brought Hemlo to the world stage at a time when the Canadian mining industry sorely needed a discovery to stimulate the business of exploration and mining.
The earlier people that explored and prospected the area didn't recognize that this was more in a volcanoclastic environment.
Nell Dragovan was president of Corona Resources at the time of the discovery. She put her trust in David even when they hit a roadblock.
He told me that he had seen an ore zone would then peter out and would be blocked by something else, then would continue on the other side. So I think that gave him the background to realize that just because there was something called a dye-based dike blocking off an ore body didn't mean that it couldn't be on the other side.
Hole 76 found a new zone, which followed my theory that there really is a big structure out here.
It was the beginning of Hemlo Gold Camp, which saw 3 mines developed.
One of them named to honor David.
The mines have been producing for 39 years, with the Williams mine still in operation by Barrick Gold. By 2021, Hemlo had produced over 22 million ounces of gold, with another 3.3 million ounces measured and indicated. David was born in Kirkland Lake, Ontario in 1943, moving to Larder Lake, then Monteith.
I went to a 2-room public school for my full 8 years. No running water, but anyway, I got educated.
David's high school years were spent back in Larder Lake. His introduction to the industry came from helping Charlie Ewell, a prospector friend of his father's.
I had the pleasure of going out to help Charlie at times in the bush. In a way, I enjoyed that. I didn't get paid for it, but I think in the long run, I got well paid for it.
While visiting his sister in Sudbury, David decided to apply to Falconbridge, securing his first job as a nickel miner.
Well, I was just a dirt digger at that time. But I still had a love for the bush and exploration. And I got to know a few of the people in exploration. And they needed a little bit of help at times in the weekend. I'd go out and help them. And as time went on, one thing led to another.
In 1969, Falconbridge sent David to Timmins to open an exploration office. While there, he was told getting a degree was important for his career. David went back to school, completing a 4-year geology degree in 3 years at Carleton University. He then secured a job at Dome Mines.
He rose very, very quickly. And in fact, within a few years, he was running the largest gold project in Canada, Detour Lake. Shows you that as a junior geologist, that they saw his talent.
In 1980, David started his own consulting company, David Bell Geological Services. His first project was Hemlo. It was his exploration background that helped him succeed at Hemlo.
He was a guy who had the ability to picture an ore body because he had worked with ore bodies his entire career. Most geologists have never been an underground geologist, so they haven't seen what David had seen at the time that he discovered Hemlo, and I think that gave him a big advantage.
People liked and trusted David to get the job done.
He was quiet, he was methodical, and he was very honest. He was nice and calm about everything, and I just felt I could trust him. I had really thought about all these majors that had been there before, turned it down. All these companies that had been there probably would have said, no, that's it. But, you know, we said we would explore this property, so that's what we're going to do. And we did.
David's accomplishments weren't limited to Canada. Consulting contracts took him around the world to Europe and South America. But it's David's discovery at Hemlo that had a monumental impact on the industry.
You can't emphasize enough the importance of that Hemlo discovery. It was a major game changer.
The significant discovery at Hemlo reverberated across northern Ontario, creating thousands of jobs and stimulating local economies for over 3 decades, and is still producing. David is most proud and personally touched by the jobs that were created by the discovery.
There's one thing the mining industry did, was that they made sure in the early days that their people were housed, they made a family, and they made a community. And I'm glad I'm just part of that.
And with that, I'd like to ask David's grandson, Dante, to join us up here on stage.
My grandfather, David Ross Bell, couldn't be here tonight, but it is my honor to accept this award on his behalf. He'd like to thank the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame for the honor to be chosen and inducted into its 2024 selection. He'd like to thank Nell Dragavan, the president of Corona Resources, for her trust and patience during the early days of the exploration program in Hemlo. He'd also like to thank Kerry Knoll for his early reporting and visits to Hemlo representing the Northern Miner. Thank you, Kerry, for nominating him to the CMHF, and thank you all for joining this evening.
Thank you very much, Dante. Your grandfather would be very proud.
Thank you to our gold sponsors, Barrick Gold and Haywood Securities.
Our next inductee this evening is Ross Lawrence, so please enjoy this video.
As a founding partner of Watts, Griffiths, and McCourt Limited, Ross Lawrence played a pivotal role in the company's success and global recognition. Established in 1962, the company is recognized as Canada's longest-running independent firm of geologists and mining consultants.
WGM's reputation is legendary, and Ross was a large part of developing that legacy. He is responsible for participating in the development of Canada's reputation in the worldwide minerals industry.
Watts Griffiths McCourt has worked in over 100 countries, where Ross led the development of the satellite offices in Australia, England, Alaska, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Iran, and Indonesia.
Ross was a big part of that because of his international relationships. Without those relationships, WGM would not have been the international firm that it was.
Ross's character is, I think, closely attuned to listening to other people. And that's the first thing you have to be able to do if you're going to sell anything to anybody, and particularly if the person is totally a stranger to you, different language and so on and so forth. So it's that empathetic approach that breaks the ice.
Ross says some of his favorite memories are of his international work advising governments.
We did a job in Yemen that was financed by the World Bank,
and it went on for 3 years, helping them set up a library, helping them with the kind of policies that they should institute for promoting the mining industry in the country, and helping do certain projects, and so in that way act as mentors to the young Yemeni geologists.
Governments will not hire consultants that they don't think are as good as gold. And so making Watts Griffiths that kind of company that governments sought after, that was, I think, Ross's major talent and contribution to Watts Griffiths.
Ross's passion for the mining industry was sparked by a presentation in high school in Toronto, the city where he was born and grew up.
We had an activities day where some engineers came and talked about their different disciplines, one of whom was a geological engineer, who talked about his career and the amount of traveling he did. And I thought to myself, that sounds pretty good. You get paid well and you get to travel. I think I'll do that.
That led Ross to the University of Toronto, obtaining a Bachelor of Applied Science in 1956 and a Master's in Commerce in 1959. It was a conversation with friend Jack McCourt that landed Ross a job at Murray Mining with Murray Watts. From there, WGM was created.
They had a project in Ungava to explore an asbestos deposit there. They needed an engineer to do a lot of the engineering work. That project indeed was to become a mine, and it was sold to Asbestos Corporation. They offered all of us a job, and we kind of looked at each other and said, we don't want to work for a big company. Why don't we form a consulting firm? And Jack also knew Tom Griffiths, who was just finishing a job in Timmins, and so it came together.
As Watts, Griffiths, and McCourt grew, its exploration work was instrumental in the discovery of several mines. WGM also played a major role in the acquisition of Red Dog by Agnico.
These guys were explorers and adventurers and builders, and you'd get there, you'd have to make a camp for yourself. You'd have to build an airstrip with a bulldozer and things like that. So these guys were from a different era, and they had to have an adventurous spirit to take those kind of risks.
One of Ross's notable technical contributions was the development of a technique for diamond drilling 12-inch diameter core for bulk sampling. Ross's expertise built WGM's extensive valuation practice. He was also a major contributor to the committee setting standards for the industry.
Ross practiced that not only for the good of Watts Griffiths McCourt, but also for the larger community by getting involved in various committees and so on that were setting standards for the way mineral properties are evaluated.
During his career, Ross had a significant impact as a volunteer, serving as a director and president of CMHF for 19 years. Contributing to the growth and development of the organization. Ross also served as a board member and past chair of NORCAT in Sudbury.
We were relying on Ross and others like him from the mining industry to guide NORCAT's development. I can say without a doubt that NORCAT would not have been as able to survive and nearly as successful without Ross's guidance.
Ross's influence is still evident today. He and fellow classmates at their 30th reunion initiated the 5T6 Award at the University of Toronto.
It goes to a person that's finished first-year engineering and has done well scholastically, but is also showing the kind of stuff that will make him or her into a good leader.
Ross's legacy lives on as WGM maintains its stellar reputation as an internationally renowned company serving the mining industry.
Ross, come on up here. Welcome to the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame.
Winston Churchill once said that a good speech has a beginning and an end with very little in between. So here goes. The music you just heard is a favorite recording. The song is Send in the Clowns, written by Stephen Sondheim for the 1973 Broadway show called A Little Night Music. It was played by Jim Galloway and his wee big band and recorded at the Montreal Bistro in February 2006. Was to be the last music recorded at the Montreal Bistro, now sadly closed. The clowns in the title are not circus clowns. Rather, this is an old Broadway theater saying, if the show isn't going well, let's send in the clowns. Seriously, though, I'm honored to be here tonight, standing in the shadows of many great men and women. Among them are the three men who were my partners for many years, Murray Watts, Tom Griffiths, and Jack McEwitt. They each taught me important things. First, stay on the right side of the sod until they ask you to join the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame. Check. Murray Watts was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1989, its maiden year. One of the many Hall of Fame members from Cobalt, Murray instilled in me the restless urge to travel and to strike out into the unknown. In 1931, at the tender age of 21, Murray traveled north from Moosonee over 2,000 kilometers by canoe to prospect the Ungava nickel belt with Mike McCart. Murray was an intrepid explorer and provided the impetus for me to venture out to strange places. Soon after WGM was formed, I began to search for overseas work. Our first success was in Libya. Excuse me. It was 1966, and oil had been discovered in 1959. King Idris was on the throne, and plans were afoot to build a cement plant near Benghazi. WGM bid to test a designated area using the only drill available, a seismic shot hole drill. I spent a month drilling for limestone, and it was a great success, leading to the opening of a cement plant 6 years later. That experience verified that foreign work was available for a little Canadian startup consulting firm, and that Murray Watts' restlessness could be emulated. Tom Griffiths was a man of a different sort, but was equally curious. That curiosity led Tom to become a successful geologist and mine finder. Working with Ab Moss, starting in 1948, Tom found 5 iron ore mines near Knob Lake. Later in Timmins, he discovered the copper zone at McIntyre and successfully brought the Jameson mine into production. For his work, he was inducted into this hall in 1999. Tom was a partner in WGM for 18 years. Under his stewardship, the firm developed a worldwide reputation for technical excellence and rock-solid integrity. 1973 was a watershed year for WGM. I signed a contract in Saudi Arabia to help build the technical capabilities of the mining side of the Ministry of Petroleum and Mineral Resources, run by Sheikh Ahmed Zaki Yamani. This was a wonderful contract for WGM. It lasted for 14 years, and we made a ton of money. Tom was a regular visitor to the kingdom and provided much valuable advice to the young Saudi geologists. Importantly, during my many visits, I was able to successfully search for work in many places along the way, including Iran and Afghanistan. Jack McEwitt was my university classmate, consulting partner for 51 years, and best friend. He joined the Hall of Fame in 2014, a year after his death. Jack was perhaps best known for his indomitable persistence in supporting good projects for WGM's clients. That support was not wasted in Alaska, where WGM teams made 5 major discoveries. In 1993, Diamond Fields Resources began drilling a sulfide showing at Voisey's Bay in Newfoundland. After 4 holes, it seemed like a discovery had been made. Robert Friedland asked WGM to go and check it out. Hamish McGregor made a swift visit and was able to confirm that, indeed, it was a legitimate discovery. Reporting to Robert a few days later, Jack was heard to say, "We know this is a mine. The only question is, how big is it?" Robert was inspired to carry on drilling, while Norm Keevil famously bet $100 million of tax money on the project. Never rest on your oars. I am indebted to each of Murray, Tom, and especially my best friend Jack for being such consummate professionals and for helping me find the road that led me here tonight. I will be eternally grateful. So please help me celebrate as we send in the clowns.
Congratulations, Ross.
Thank you to our silver sponsors, BMO Capital Markets and Magris Performance Materials.
Our final inductee this evening is the legendary mining investor, Eric Sprott. Please turn your attention to the screens to learn more about Eric's tremendous support of the Canadian mining industry.
With a career spanning 5 decades, Eric Sprott has been instrumental in leading investment into the mining industry, backing countless gold and silver exploration companies with strong vision and conviction.
I don't think there's been a more prolific mine financier in the Canadian markets. I can't think of another individual who's contributed as much money and investment expertise to the sector that he has.
Born in Ottawa, Eric Sprott obtained a Bachelor of Commerce degree from Carleton University in 1965 and became a chartered accountant in 1968.
Got into the auditing business with Pete Marwick. I didn't spend much time in auditing. About 2 days after I wrote my exams, I left, and I was in the research department at Merrill Lynch. Well, I was at Lowen and Dutch McCutcheon, an institutional brokerage firm, and then 10 years after that, I started my own securities firm, Sprott Securities, which still exists today.
Since the 1980s, Eric has been an enthusiastic and committed investor in the mining industry.
He would make decisions that very few could make. So contra the herd, he was willing to take large risks when others weren't, and he would be alone.
Eric's commitment isn't seasonal. It doesn't wane in trying times. In fact, it's in these trying periods that his commitment truly shines, providing financial stability and unending support when they are needed the most.
It wasn't necessarily an easy road.
It's not an 8-hour-a-day job. It just isn't. When I ran the brokerage company, I mean, I'd be in at work here at 4 in the morning, many mornings. But that you didn't have the benefit of computers then, so you had to do all your own reading and the various newspapers and any source of information you had.
Eric's willingness to take risks also had its ups and downs.
As I reflect on it, we had way more losers than winners. It takes 10 years to bring an ore body that's conceptually there into production, so it's a long, drawn-out affair. But when you're a winner, is a very, very large payoff.
The Sprott name became synonymous with success. If Eric invested, then others were significantly more likely to be interested in a project.
They'd come through here by the dozens from all over the world looking for that Sprott check, and it was the money, but it was also an endorsement, and almost always it caused share prices to go up, and so that's what companies were looking for.
Ian Telfer recalls approaching Eric to invest in his streaming company, Silver Wheaton, when it was a new concept in the industry.
Eric listened to my whole story and then turned me down. He wasn't sure how it was going to work and how the market would react, and neither were we, neither was the market. When we took it public, we took it public, I think, at a value of $50 million, and today it's worth $26 billion. So, but once Eric saw how it worked, he switched on a dime, became his favorite stock, and he became a huge supporter.
Throughout his career, Eric founded several successful companies. Sprott Securities became Cormark Securities, now one of the leading investment dealers focused on mining. Sprott Inc. is a global alternative asset manager with over $25 billion of assets under management. Eric was an early backer and chairman of Kirkland Lake Gold, one of the largest miners in the world when it merged with Agnico Eagle Mines Limited in 2021.
His commitment to the industry is probably what differentiates him from almost anyone else in it, and his success. I mean, Eric has got to be the most successful mining investor in Canada over the past 30 years. So his commitment, his knowledge, and his success speaks for itself.
Since retiring from Sprott Inc. in 2017, Eric runs the Sprott family office, which has invested more than $900 million in over 175 mining companies. His biggest investment yet is in Newfound Gold Corp, a new project in Newfoundland with an eye to the future.
I'm actually thinking of my daughters who own a piece of this company will own a much larger piece someday. And I'm hoping that 20, 30 years from now, that they will benefit by the success of the company.
Eric Sprott's success has allowed him to give back. The Sprott Foundation has donated over $350 million to address hunger in the homeless population, contributed to First Nations groups, to medical facilities, and many other causes.
Eric's transformational gift of $25 million in 2012 to University Health Network established the Sprott Department of Surgery. And this was the largest gift to a surgical department in Canada at the time. And of course, one of the largest gifts to University Health Network in its history as well.
Through the Sprott Foundation, Eric and his wife Visma committed to a second $25 million in 2018 to UHN, enabling world-leading research and life-saving surgical care. Eric also contributed to the CAN Fund, $100,000 for each of the 14 gold medals won by Canadians at the 2010 Vancouver Olympics.
I love the Olympics, and there's nothing touches my heart more than seeing a Canadian athlete doing well.
Eric has won many awards for his contributions. Among them, he was named to the Order of Canada, inducted into the Investment Industry Hall of Fame, and was awarded an honorary doctorate from Carleton University.
He was a public champion of the sector, and then how many dozens of juniors would not have made it if it wasn't for Eric Sprott?
Eric's legacy is one of remarkable achievement, generosity, and a resounding commitment to the industry.
Please come on up to the stage, Eric.
I don't know if anybody recognizes that music. It's music that touched me, okay? And it's Canadian. And it was interesting that that was by Katie Lang at the 2010 Vancouver Olympics. and it was just a stunning rendition. Thank you very much, all of the various groups that have put this wonderful dinner together. It's definitely an honor to be here. When I look at the careers of the people that have been honored before me, it's kind of hard to believe that I would be here. And one of my deficiencies is I'm colorblind. And you know how you look at all those maps that they have all these various colors, and here's where the ore is. And I always have to, well, where is the ore, you know? And I'm supposed to know the difference between this color and that color. Of course, I know they never find it anyway, but. So here I am, a chartered accountant amongst geologists. And you might wonder, well, why is it that that man could have done as well in mining when he's not that skilled in mining? And I always make the comment that the geos, and no disrespect to geos, by the way, they got to do all the hard work, okay? I come along later when they find something. But the geos are very busy trying to figure out, well, why is that rock there? And Eric is sitting here saying, hey, I don't care why the rock's there. What the hell's it worth? And I'll figure out the PV, present value, well before they figure out the present value. And I also, because of my footloose approach to the opportunities, I always leave myself some room for error, by the way. And you know, how many times have I come across a description of an ore body where the guy says, well, you know, we have a couple of million ounces. And my favorite question is, and this is a very interesting contrast to people in the consulting business, my question always is, how big can it get? And of course, in the consulting business, they got to be very careful. They got to make sure it's not, that their number's not too high. So they look at it one way, and I look at it the other way. And the other way I look at it is when they say there's 2 million. I say, well, yeah, but how big can it get? That's what I really want to know. And as you can appreciate, there's lots of people in this room who might give me their favorite answer. It's going to be big. And even though probably most of you have not been involved in 50 and 100 million ounce discoveries, I've been shown lots of them. By probably many people here. And needless to say, I'm a bit of a sucker for a great story. I want to talk a little about losers. Sorry, I don't mean you people. I mean, you have more losers than winners, okay? But when you look at something and you think it should be valued at X and you can buy it at like 2% of X, you got a lot of protection if it works out. And you got this tremendous upside when it works out. And that's always the thing that I am ultimately interested in, the opportunity in mining. But I didn't start in mining, even though I'm now a member of the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame. For some bizarre reason, I started my investment career in the securities business. One of the mantras I go by is the comments by Stephen Leacock, who said, the harder I work, the luckier I get. And I happen to believe that because I was always a hard worker. I also have my own little saying, the more you give away, the more you get. And so I would encourage people to think about that. I certainly think that one gets lucky by giving things away. I started as a security analyst in 1968. From 1968 to 1982, the Dow Jones went up 11% in total. 14 years. But somehow we were okay. And I didn't focus on mining then, I was certainly aware of it. But one story I did get involved with, and you might all appreciate this, there was a group of companies, right, Hargreaves, Lakeshore, East Malartic, Wilroy, And they were all part of what became the LAC group of companies. And you might have thought it would be highly unrewarding to read the monthly OSC bulletin page to page, probably 150 pages every month, to see who was buying securities in the various companies. And I would keep seeing these, LAC, or Little Long LAC is buying Lakeshore is buying Wright Hargreaves, and Wright Hargreaves is buying Wilroy, and it got confusing. I was trying to keep a record of it all. And I said, well, I wonder which one I buy here. And I sort of came up with a great creative thought. Well, hold it now. If they all own a piece of each other, the ultimate market cap is what they don't own. That's the market cap. And of course, when I figured out the market cap, I said, oh my God, this thing's got a market cap of X, and obviously it could be worth 5X. Giddy up, go. And in fact, at that time, I bought shares in Lakeshore Mines, and very quickly, it was a 10-bagger. And we've been very lucky that's sort of been our history, that we found big winners. In the year 2000, I'd sort of resolved that the stock market was massively overvalued. I used to write these comments every month, that the NASDAQ was likely to crash, and what could I possibly do to save my long-only customers? And it dawned on me, one, you gotta have a hedge fund, and two, you have to own gold and silver. And so back in 2000, I started the process of owning a lot of gold and silver and focusing on it, and I've almost been solely focused on it for, goodness, 24 years. And I can assure you that those decisions, when the markets were crashing, and we'd be making it on the short side in the market and the long side in the precious metals securities, produced some gobsmacking returns. There was a year that one of our hedge funds was up $1 billion. We earned a very small fee off of that. And actually, one of the interesting things is when we had big wins around the trading desk, we had a saying we used to make. And maybe I have some traders here who might remember. What did we do when we had a big win? You baba. You baba. And I love saying you baba. I'm going to make a few comments. I really shouldn't get anybody depressed about where the world's going, but I've always said, actually probably for the last 15, 20 years, that the U.S. is bankrupt, that we're going to have a debt crisis, that the difference of wealth between those who are not that well off and those that are is becoming ridiculous, particularly in the U.S. when you got these 7 stocks that represent whatever percent, 60% of all the money being made. It is absolutely ridiculous. So there are some things to be concerned about there. Why do I particularly like mining? And it's been referred to by other inductees that there's these tremendous economic benefits. They're good for the country, they're good for the province, they're good for the municipalities. I was quite impressed when it was suggested that this industry employed so many First Nations people. That was most impressive. The other thing about mining, of course, is the outsized returns. When you identify a winner, it's not little. And some of these people who've been inducted well before me have all been incredibly financially successful, and of course great supporters for the industry, which is well noted. I want to make one comment about an organization that I've been involved with starting up, and that's called Save Canadian Mining. And the purpose of Save Canadian Mining is to try to get naked short selling outlawed. There were 3 major financial institutions in the U.S., I won't mention their names, who were recently charged by the SEC for misfiling millions of trades, and they paid some modest fee. South Africa recently banned, South Korea recently banned short selling, and they've come up with 2 names of banks that they are charging with naked short selling. Naked short selling is when you sell something that you don't own and you have no intention of ever delivering the securities. And it's something that I think negatively affects us all in the mining business, and anything anyone here can do to help bring the regulators to writing that, it will be well respected. I want to take the opportunity of thanking my family. Unfortunately, my wife could not be here. She's been sick for the last 3 years. She was hoping to make it. She was so committed that she had time to go to Holt Renfrew and get everything. But she was a little under the weather, so at least she's got the goods. And I want to thank my immediate family. My 2 daughters are here, and my grandchildren are here. Here. Great to have you. Some of the various advisors who helped me, thank you. The friends that have helped me, thank you. You don't get there on your own. I have my partners at the firm that are with me here, and everyone's been a part of it. Lots of people outside that probably aren't here have helped us notice things. We do get a lot of calls saying, there's a great investment opportunity here that you should look into, and we do look at them. Anyway, I'm very honored to receive this award. I'm so happy with, I look at the legacy of the people and the people tonight and the commitment that they've made to the industry, more so than me. I've committed my money to the industry, but I'm not having to understand. I mean, the only thing I can understand about rocks, when I look at a rock, there's only one thing I understand: if there's a nugget in it. I know what to do when I see that. Anyway, it's an honor. It's one of the happiest days of my life. I want to close with 3 small words. You Baba!
Congratulations, Eric. What a great speech to go out on. I want to say a thank you as well. I want to thank you sincerely, everyone here, for doing something that my own wife didn't do tonight. And that is to choose these stars over Madonna. Yeah, she chose Madonna over this, her loss. Many congratulations again. Let's do another big round of applause for the newest members of the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame. All right, so here's the question I ask you guys at the end of each one of these. Do you know someone who has had an exemplary career in the mining business? Think long and hard about that, and think about who you deem to be an extraordinary leader and nominate them. 2025 nominations go up in the spring. Just go to the website. You can submit your preferred candidate in partnership with one of our member organizations, the Northern Miner, CIM, Mining Association of Canada, the PDAC, or our associate member organizations. We're trying to make this as easy as possible. The AEME and the Mining Associations of BC, Saskatchewan, Ontario, and Quebec. And I have the best news of all. The night is really not over yet, because we're all going for a nightcap over in 104, which is just out those doors and over the way. That's sponsored by Franco, Nevada. Thank you to Agnico Eagle for sponsoring the pre-drinks before the show. Thank you to all of you. I hope you had a wonderful time. It was a lot of fun being your MC again this year. Cheers, everyone.